This first part is a quick summary of the Tawana Brawley case for everyone unaware.
Tawana Brawley is a 16-year-old girl whose story is the talk of New York these days.
The New York State teenager who claims that she was abducted and raped by 6 white men.
In the late 1980s, Tawana Brawley became a household name as her horrific stories spread across the nation.
She had KKK written across her chest and nigger across her stomach,
leading to widespread outrage.
We're going to expose the facts in these crimes that you do against black people.
And intense soul-searching about race in America.
Let Miss Brawley represent what we're not going to stand for as parents, as Americans, and as human beings.
But how did investigators discover the truth behind the Brawley rape, and what is its legacy today?
I think that the lessons of Brawley is very instructive for me and others, but I think that people want to cut off the lessons where they want.
There's absolutely no way that this served any good social purpose. If you concoct a rape, then you undermine the credibility of women who are raped. If you concoct a rape and turn it into a race crime, then you undermine true victims of race crimes.
About 6 months after the hoax was unmasked, Brawley's former boyfriend told Newsday that Tawana had invented the scheme, apparently to avoid a beating by her mother's boyfriend after running away from home. But Brawley, who now works as a nurse under another name in Virginia, has steadfastly refused to explain herself publicly.
I'm not a liar and I'm not crazy.
What did I lie about? Lie about what? Grand jury to me didn't really exist. That was all a farce.
Brawley and her advisors lost a defamation suit to Pagonis in 1998. Maddox had his law license suspended due to his refusal to answer questions about his conduct during the case. And Mason lost his because of unconnected ethical lapses. Sharpton was acquitted in a series of charity-related fraud charges.
I think that we, and certainly I, going forward, learned how to be more cautious. But I also think the media has not adopted a lot of its lessons, and I think prosecutors have not adopted its lessons.
The activist himself has moved on from the hoax that has altered the lives of so many others.
Barack Obama.
I told Reverend Al backstage, he's getting skinnier than me.
This is an episode of the Morton Downey Jr. show where they discuss Tawana's case in depth.
Was to ask the first question that any investigator, any law enforcement officer, any grand jury should ask. Was a crime committed? If the answer is there was a chance a crime was committed, what kind of a crime becomes the second question? Mm-hmm. The third question becomes, who most likely was the perpetrator of that crime? Our Attorney General, Robert Abrams, our governor, Mario Cuomo, started from the third question. Who did it? Never once did they ask what any law enforcement officer should ask, was a crime committed? Mm-hmm. Whereupon the alleged victim...
Why did they do that? Why did they respond to the third question instead of the first? Were they afraid? Were they intimidated?
Political and racial cowardice. Whenever there is a case with any kind of a criminal implication involving blacks and whites, immediately the politician and elements of the media, major elements of the media, tuck their tails and immediately take on a paranoid posture and proceed to start covering up.
I might add something to you here that I was told by Fats Sharpton that if I had you on the show without him, he would put pressure on my advertisers to ignore this show from now on, all right? And I understand that he's done that before.
But what's interesting...
did he do that to you on the Pat Buchanan show?
Vernon Mason has been doing it to me for years. Lester Maddox, I mean Alton Maddox.
And how close you were?
I think they're probably cousins. They look alike, they talk alike, they act alike, I got to assume they're related.
Walks like a duck, talks like a duck, smells like a skunk. It's got to be one of them.
Vernon Mason was able to veto my appearance and crossfire. He went on against a white guy. He refused to go on against any articulate black because he wants to be able to use the racial card, the racial red herring.
Now, what's happened in this case? I mean, let's take everyone through what's happened. November 15th, sometime 1987, a young girl is found in a garbage bag outside of a rather middle-class apartment complex. Fecal matter on her body. The press doesn't identify that fecal matter immediately, so you assume it's human feces. The words KKK carved in her chest was the words in the paper. We later find out that the fecal matter was dog feces, that the KKK being carved in was indeed with a magic marker, and one of the neighbors attested to the fact that the girl carried the garbage bag and crawled into the garbage bag herself. And finally, after being hospitalized and examined because of the alleged rape that took place, turns out she wasn't raped. Pick me up from there.
More than that, Mort, the media first reported that she was dumped in a garbage bag along the road, someplace in the woods. As it turned out, she was, in fact, seen and discovered 10 minutes before her parents reported her missing in Wappinger Falls.
Now, outside, her parents, as I recall, went down the first night and tried to report her missing, all right?
In a different city.
All right, in a different city, left the police station, and 4 days later, went back down, and 10 minutes before they made that report, the daughter was spotted.
Exactly.
All right.
That's the first strange and unusual thing.
Mm-hmm.
We then had a series of...
and I might add, you investigated this along with Galen Kelly, who is a private investigator.
That's right. Galen is from Management Safeguard Company, a private detective agency, who has worked with me in other
step
cases.
In here at any point that you want to dress this up.
Well, one of the things, when we came in, not just myself, but as a company, that Corps wanted to do was really a feasibility study. Maybe that's too grand a term, but what happened as far as the investigation from a public law enforcement standpoint so far? Did Mr. Abrams' office, his investigators, find all the appropriate leads, follow the appropriate leads, do it competently?
Did he?
As far as we can ascertain, absolutely.
Did he try to cover for anyone?
No, there was absolutely...
Was there an assistant district attorney up there who is now being accused of having been involved in it? Had he been examined?
Well, you say accused. You know, the only person that accused him was the Mason Maddox combine, so to speak.
It did not come from Brawley herself.
Well, no one knows that because no one can speak to her.
It was alleged that Brawley accused the sheriff.
If indeed, all right, if indeed now Tawana Brawley was brought forth to a grand jury, to the grand jury in New York, do you gentlemen believe that you would have an unconstructed story or indeed a constructed story that she has been now held from talking to authorities for so long? I think the real victim here, again, is the young lady,
exactly.
Right? I think whether she was raped, whether she was molested, whether she was just out partying, having a good time, A, she's a bright girl, B, she's doing well in school, C, she's not on drugs that anyone knows of. I think this girl is really being used by the black community and the white community.
There were two things
by
that are very
Mason and Maddox.
All right, okay, Mason and Maddox.
There were two things that are very important. First of all, I think it's quite correct that we have to be concerned with that next week, 6 months from now, whenever she does make an appearance, about the credibility of that story. In fact, if you work with a person long enough, you can get them to believe something. So she might even come forth believing something after being worked with for such a long period of time.
She's going to school now again. She's back in school.
Exactly.
They're trying to protect her, and I'm glad they are. Are you familiar with the allegation made today that the lady who's been driving her to school was picked up for armed robbery?
No, the gentleman, who drove her to Newburgh the night that she was supposed to have
that she was going, exactly.
Right. Who drove her in a stolen car and was picked up last night with a .357 Magnum in a stick-up of a 7-Eleven store.
One of the most amazing things is that once we heard this, very shortly after the fact, I thought this is a wonderful opportunity. We have somebody that's intimately involved in this affair who is now, very frankly, in a compromising situation. He's got prior arrests. There's a, as they say...
He could be in deep stuff, right?
Has a deep, serious problem here. It's time to get upstate, get into the jail, talk to him and say, you know, let's talk about this. Maybe a little quid pro quo here somehow. Almost immediately released, as far as we understand. He's out.
He's out.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Tell me what we're going to do. We're going to find out if the lawyer's breaking the law, find out if indeed if these gentlemen spoke to the people in Wappinger Falls, and develop this case so that you, the audience, can be as familiar or more familiar with it than Sharpton or certainly the news has been up to this point. We'll be back. Stay with us.
Unfortunately, that sometimes women haven't met with the appropriate response from the criminal justice agencies. The old thing, well, if you don't want to get raped, don't be in a parking lot type of thing. We've come a long way in education and attitude changes. Something like this sets that back 10 years. So this is not a racial thing. This is an issue for women that, you know, let's say right now, in that part, in Dutchess County, a black woman is raped. And let's say it's by a white man. It has nothing to do with this. She's not about to walk into a police station and report it. And that's a terrible tragedy. And that's a very frightening thing.
Something like that happened in New Jersey not too long ago.
Absolutely. Now, what happens too when, and I don't want a self-fulfilling prophecy here, but next year, 2 years from now, 6 months from now in Pittsburgh or Chicago or God knows where, that there is, I don't want to use the term legitimate, a more substantiated racial assault. And an organization like CORE or the NAACP or the Urban Leaders or something goes to that place to resolve this issue. People remember issues, they don't remember people. And say Mr. Innis goes out to wherever to investigate something more substantial, to bring a resolution there. They're going to say, no, weren't you the guy, weren't you that preacher from New York State that was involved with that Tawana? Isn't this the same thing?
You know, here's what I find interesting. I don't know if you gentlemen are aware of this any more than I am. I get it from a third party. That indeed, for some time now, Reverend Al and his cohorts, some of his cohorts, have been under investigation by the Attorney General's office with information ready to be presented to a grand jury. Hypothetically, I say to myself, is it possible for someone of Al and Sharpton's mentality to say, hey, I'm going to throw some dust in the fan, raise enough hell with Abrams and his people so that when the time comes, if they do present anything to a grand jury on me, I can say, he's trying to get even with me because of what I did to him.
Let me say, he has Bobby Abrams hogtied now, and Bobby Abrams deserves it. Why? Why did Bobby Abrams give full faith and value to the malarkey that Maddox and Mason was talking about? Right?
Why shouldn't they at least listen to them? Why shouldn't they at least listen?
But 4 hours, under conditions, back and forth, breaking deals, demands, escalation, the IRA. Every fantasy.
And that really got pretty ridiculous when the IRA has come over from Belfast.
Can they listen to? Why would the governor of this state, a presidential candidate, as quite as it gets, why would he give full faith and value to the nonsense? And why would he start off with the conclusion that somebody is guilty of committing a crime before making the determination, was a crime committed? Both the governor and the attorney general, and some elements in the media, have been approaching this thing in a very conclusionary way.
All right. Let's get out of the legal mumbo-jumbo jungle and let's talk about what your investigation showed when you went up there.
Well, you can never prove the negative by definition. You cannot unequivocally prove that nothing happened.
Right.
You should be able to prove that something happened, though. Now, if you're dealing in, like, a metropolitan area in New York, Detroit, Chicago, there's a lot of the anonymous nature of the streets. That's not what it is up there. It's a small place, small population density. Everybody knows everybody.
Is it a racist community?
No, it's not.
It may be now.
You sure?
I went up there. The first thing I did, I took my staff up there. I took Galen up. He went several times on his own. We talked with blacks, white, men, women, young people, older people. We saw no sense of racism. People were concerned for this girl and very concerned that their voice was muted.
But also, I don't think it was racist up to this point, and I don't think that it is now. But what happens is people get angry. People are starting to feel, and watching it over a couple of weeks now, some white middle-class folks are getting angry that they feel ripped off, they feel put upon, they feel victimized.
I know Jussie Jackson won't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
Won't go near it. You know when Jussie Jackson won't get involved in something like this when he can get in the paper for the New York primary. I mean, something really stinks. Let me go to some of these folks here. Ma'am, your first name, where are you from?
Vicki, I'm from Wappingers Falls. I'm a senior at Ketchum. And there's no racism in our school, in our community whatsoever.
You go to school with any black kids?
Yes, I do.
How many?
I would say there's roughly 100 there.
100 in the school?
Yeah.
How many in the whole school?
2,000.
2,000. So it's a very minor minority.
Our senior class president is black. I mean, people are judged as individuals there. We have another junior class officer who's black. We've had black people on the homecoming court every year. There's no racism there. They're creating it.
What's happening to Wappingers Falls right now? Are they getting nervous? Are they getting afraid of black people?
People are getting disgusted.
Yeah. Are you disgusted?
Yeah.
Why?
Because she's a liar. She's making this whole thing up.
How do you know?
If she has a story to tell, why isn't she coming forward?
Well, wait a second. I couldn't agree with you more if she were a 20-year-old woman. She's a 15, now a 16-year-old girl who has been surrounded by all these powerhouses, all right? Well, if not powerhouses, big, pompous buffoons, all right? She is being told how her whole, I assume, how her whole life can be ruined, how she can become a heroine, how she can do all of these things. And I'm sure it's easy. I mean, if they could brainwash someone who has grown up like Jane Fonda, they could certainly brainwash a little girl like this.
She's not Little Miss Innocent.
Why do you know that?
What girl who's Miss Innocent gets in a stolen car, goes to visit her boyfriend in prison?
How do you know she knows it was stolen?
Well, who goes to visit a boyfriend in prison? That's Miss Innocent, goes out with people who are for attempted murder.
Is that what he's in jail for? Is that what he's in jail for? Her boyfriend?
He's in jail for a gun rap.
Gun rap. Sir, where are you from?
I'm from Peekskill, but I'm originally from the Wappingers areas. I still have family that's up in the Wappinger area. And, you know, I think that what we all want is due process. That's all we're striving for is due process. And, well, all that's come out of all the litigation, all the media hype has been hatred, antagonism between white and blacks. And the whole point of what's going on has been completely shaded. And I believe that this is all a hype to when it actually does get to the grand jury, that Sharpton can do something, just like you said, Mort. And it's all, I believe, a stage act to impede due process.
All right, impeding due process, it has been successfully, in my opinion, impeded already. As a matter of fact, it's been successfully circumvented already, because if you get that young lady before a grand jury now, it's impossible to know that she hasn't been set up.
Well, one of the things that we would be interested in doing is I'll accept as a hypothesis that there's a fear or paranoia of going to the public law enforcement agencies, the criminal justice systems, of the white society, the establishment. But CORE is a totally independent organization, it's a civil rights organization. There's no reason why Tawana couldn't come at any time, any place to a representative of CORE.
Why should she?
To tell the story to someone.
How can she?
Well, not under Mason and Maddox's control, she can't. But if she's out there listening to this, I would say that, contact CORE. They would certainly provide any guarantees or any protections for the opportunity to talk to her.
Indeed, though, because of your well-known conflicts with Sharpton, would she have a fairer shot with you than she does with Sharpton from becoming brainwashed?
Surprisingly enough, I work fairly well with Sharpton on most things. It's Maddox and Mason that I have well-known conflicts with. And if I can get her away from Maddox and Mason, even with Sharpton involved, I would bring in the NAACP. I would bring in the Urban League. I would bring in any legitimate black organization to work with us and help her get justice, but not through a cover-up. She will have the affirmative obligation to corroborate and help us to corroborate that something happened.
There has been a cover-up, in your opinion.
The cover-up has been on the part of her lawyers advising her to not corroborate her allegations that she was injured, that she's been a victim.
Hasn't the corroboration been assisted by a press that was so anxious, so anxious to get a story, so anxious to spread it across, so anxious to have that little girl lie back down in the garbage bag so they could photograph her?
A press that was afraid to have anybody come out and make the obvious conclusion that the case seems shaky.
We're going to come back with the audience and they can give it some strength. Stand by. You ever feel like...
I'll come back to this episode, but here's a funny clip of Roy Innis and Al Sharpton discussing this case again live at the Apollo on another episode of Morton Downey Jr.
You gotta rap for the people in town. We're in Harlem now, so you got to get down.
I gotta do it in a way that's nice. I don't want to walk out of here with ice. I want to tell you, man, when I'm in town, you and me, Biz, gonna get it down.
That's right, no, that's right.
Has become of the dream of Martin Luther King spoke so many years ago about. Has the dream of the 1960s become the nightmare of the 80s, or has the dream simply been deferred, awaiting new leadership and inspirations? Tonight, we have some of the black leaders of today, from Roy Innis of CORE to the Reverend Al Sharpton. Some people call Al the talking microwave because I'll tell you, he can heat up anything in a hurry. Who speaks for black America? Roy Innis? Al Sharpton? Who speaks? You'll be the judge. Join us tonight. One of the problems in our country that we really don't address is the white people trying to tell black people who their leadership should be. One of those problems is addressed because the white people, we haven't been able to pick too many good leaders. Well, who does pick the leadership? And what is leadership? It was Martin Luther King. Certainly it's a Jesse Jackson. He got 7 million votes. Tonight I want to introduce you to one very good friend of mine, Roy Innis, and another gentleman. And the interesting dichotomy of it all, another good friend, Al Sharpton. I mean, Al and I have gone out drinking together, but he uses it on his hair. You're not smiling tonight. No sense of humor tonight. Gentlemen, let me go first to Al. On last night's show, you had the audacity to praise Louis Farrakhan and call Roy Innis a bigot. Reverend, would you explain to Roy Innis why he's a bigot?
Well, I would not explain to Roy why he's a bigot. I'll explain to your audience. I was a person that had respect for Mr. Innis. Mr. Innis in the late 60s was a nationalist leader in this community. And many of the things that I praise Farrakhan for now, in terms of self-help programs and in terms of having integrity, Mr. Innis represented. But in this transitional stage, Mr. Innis went from a man who would challenge a Bob Abrams to a man who would curtail and kowtow and back down to a Bob Abrams. Just 2 years ago, Mr. Innis and I were friends when a lot of ex-Corps members were making allegations. But when one bum, who he knew was a bum, tried to turn on us, Roy, in his assignment, embraced them. Because anything that goes against our community, whether it's Bork, whether it's Bernard Getz, whether it's Tawana Brawley, Roy Innis takes the other side. I feel that if Mr. Abrams, who has an active investigation on Roy, who Roy has said to me is using a Jewish plot against him, if Mr. Abrams and the IRS can make you get on your knees, Roy, fine. That's your problem. You should shut up and let those of us that have enough guts to stand up and fight, stand up and fight. Because there's some of us that investigations and indictments and the rest don't mean anything to. How you can go from a critic of Bob Abrams to an apologist of Bob Abrams makes you suspect at best and a sellout in fact.
Roy, how does it feel to be classified as a bigot after a lifetime of fighting for civil rights?
I will say that I'm probably one of the...
Now please zip it. We're going to let everyone talk tonight. And that's what the loudmouths are for. Let these guys talk first. Go ahead.
I'm one of the few non-bigoted black leaders around, I will say. Let me state now, let's deal with the facts. Let's go to the record. Tonight, we want to deal with the records and the facts.
Please do it.
On this program, your program, you heard me, you have me on tape defending this man. Recently, even after the shenanigans with him and the other soldiers.
That's a lot of crap.
No, brother, you had your chance.
That's a lot of crap.
Brother,
and I got
brother,
it.
no,
I got it.
no.
I got it.
Oh, no.
I got it.
We're going to continue with the show. We're going to continue with the show. We're going to be cool. We're going to go to a break. We'll be right back. We'll be right back. Camera, we'll be right back after these messages. Cool it.
Hi, Mom!
I almost feel like saying welcome back to the wide world of sports. But instead, let me tell you a new format for this discussion. This discussion will be conducted by these two gentlemen, each one having 5 minutes of his time, and then we'll go to the audience for questions for each of these gentlemen. I would ask that Reverend Sharpton be able to call the coin for who goes first.
But first, let me say this. We are continuing, because Innis and I have agreed.
Please, listen.
That I'm not going to, in Harlem, have anybody go through a thing with bringing in the police from the outside. So we've agreed to have a benefit match.
A benefit
in
boxing
September
match.
In which whoever wins that organization gets the money. So Roy, get ready for a righteous butt whipping from me.
Would the Reverend Sharpton call the coin? Would the Reverend Sharpton call the coin for the opening? Heads is called. And it is heads. Reverend Sharpton will say what he has to say in the next Luther King.
Roy Innis actually had a tendency to make the first move on live TV.
And to scare minority people. Do you endorse that activity?
Listen, let's get to the real issues here.
Yes, sir,
why are you curbing? Why are you beating around the bush, Jerry? Look at Jerry King. That was your former name, wasn't it?
It wasn't, and I really recommend that you don't push me too hard.
Oh, come on, sir. Hey, do a little bit.
Okay, let's take a break. We'll be right back.
Sucking up, trying to be a white
Go ahead, Roy, go ahead.
Now, let me tell you.
Sit down, man.
Hey, you gotta be kidding. You gotta be kidding. You gotta be kidding. Hey, hold it. Hold it.
Sit down.
Only slightly the worse for the wear. We're back. The skinheads have been, or the racist skinheads have been cleared out of the building.
Go ahead, sir.
This is directed to Al Sharpton. See, the way I see it is Al, he came across a case in which a young black girl was raped. Number one, by a group of white men. Number two, by a man presenting a badge. All right. This was his golden opportunity to be the unsung hero who came to the young girl's rescue and prosecute the white men that did the dastardly deed, only to find out that there were inconsistencies in her story. All right. Now, you and I both know that if there was any doubt in his mind that these men were guilty, that these guys would be up on trial right now. Okay.
You sure of that?
I'm almost positive. Okay. These guys, they don't hesitate but to prosecute if they have substantial evidence to prosecute.
Because this would have been another fabulous media holiday Howard Beach case, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Okay. Now, he found out that there were too many inconsistencies, but by then there was too much coverage for this. Okay. And, you know, he...
Rock in a hard place. He couldn't back out.
Exactly. There was too much media coverage, and he was in over his head. Now, what's he going to do? Okay, he's going to hide this girl out and not let her talk.
All right, you gentlemen, did you find in your investigation any shred of evidence that indicated the story happened the way the press said it happened?
Truly amazing. There was nothing we could come up with, well, the whole staff of people could come up with absolutely nothing that substantiated the claims as they have made it. Nothing.
Did you have an opportunity to examine the area where the girl was supposedly laid?
Absolutely.
Did you have an opportunity to examine the garbage bag in which she was placed?
No.
Did you have an opportunity to talk with the lady who spotted Tawana crawling into this garbage bag?
I personally didn't, but some people in our investigation did.
All right. Did you have an opportunity to speak with the person who gave her the ride to Newburgh?
No, and that's one of the things that I wanted to do, and it's amazing that he got out of jail so quickly. I'd like to have gotten up there and talked to him.
Why did he get out of jail, and what was his bail?
There seems to be some confusion about that. He may not have had to post bail.
How many previous counts of felonious deeds did he have on his record?
At least one. The day that he drove Tawana to Newburgh, he was arrested with a stolen car.
Was he out of jail on bail on that charge?
No one seems to know. The strangest thing that this fellow gets charged, and we never know what bail he's charged with some serious felonies.
In either one of the felonies.
Exactly.
Grand theft auto or armed robbery.
Armed robbery.
One of the things that in this, there were different types of people that are involved in this matter on a variety of levels. So you would think that somebody had a vested interest. When you get corroborating information, or lack of information, as we are in this case, there's a consistency to it. It's not like all of the people in the police community are saying this, and some of the people in, say, the drug community are saying that, family members are saying this, and so forth. There's a consistency that people from all walks of life, all social strata, all different perspectives of this case, are fundamentally coming up with the same thing.
Right.
Nothing.
The young lady who was up here from Wappinger Falls earlier said, she isn't an angel. So I assume you did a background investigation on Tawana Brawley. She was a good student. We know that. Like any kid, occasionally she cut class. We know that. Did she use drugs?
I don't know for a fact, but quite a number of people have suggested that.
Suggested or said it?
Well, people have said that.
People have said it. Are you satisfied that she is no different than any other teenager in reality?
Don't know.
Don't know, but I think that somebody used the term recently of the Brawley family being Ozzie and Harriet. And I think that that's a misrepresentation. Not exactly true. I think that quite probably she's been a troubled girl for a number of years.
Did you have an opportunity to speak to her stepfather, who was also served time as on a manslaughter charge of 7 years?
He's not Ozzie. Some of our people did, yeah.
You did have an opportunity. Was he
less than cooperative?
Less than cooperative. Did you have an opportunity to speak to any of these people, Roy?
No, I didn't. I stayed away from the family. I spoke to people in the community. I wanted to hear from Wappinger Falls, from blacks and whites.
Let's hear from some more folks. Sir.
Yeah, my question is, how come, well, let's refer to them as the Three Stooges, because I can't think of a better name for them. They demand and they want a special prosecutor. The state of New York supplies the Attorney General of New York, and that doesn't satisfy them. Who do they want to be the special prosecutor?
Well, any prosecutor that would cut a deal with them to start the case in the middle and not look at the whole case.
How do they recognize it as a racial case? Who knows that the public doesn't know that it's racist. We only know it's racist because of what we've heard from Al Sharpton and the rest of the Stooges.
There's never been a case that these guys were involved in that the main line of defense is racism. A little hoodlum shot a Catholic priest, kill him, and rob him with an illegal gun. Maddox had one theory, racism. The kid got off with the murder, with the robbery, with the illegal gun.
With the accusation of him being a homosexual.
Yes.
Ma'am?
And racism.
That's right.
Ma'am, that's how black leaders and white leaders are turning black and white people into fearing each other, despising each other, being prejudiced against each other because they're not leaders.
That's right. We're going back to the 70s.
Well, I'm from CORE, and one of our main focuses have been on the effects that this so-called incident will have on the Wappinger Fall area, the surrounding communities, New York City and the country at large. Because we're the Congress of Racial Equality. That means unity for everybody. It doesn't mean polarization and divisiveness. Now, I went with Mr. Innis, Mr. Kelly, and some other people from our staff up there to investigate. As I said, we were mainly focusing on the effects that it had on people. We spoke to a lot of blacks in the Wappinger area, Poughkeepsie, Newburgh, the surrounding communities. And I have a little story that's real short that one of the girls on our staff told Mr. Innis. I mean, he from time to time, he goes and checks with the staff and says, well, what do you guys really think about this? But she lost her voice. She's sitting up there, but she can't talk. So I'm going to tell the story for her. She said, this reminds me when I was 16 and one night.
Tawana, same age.
Yeah, well, she was the same age. And she went somewhere that she was not supposed to be. While she was out, she got cut real badly. The cut scared her, so that meant she had to go home and tell her mother, I got cut. So her mother said, well, how did this happen? And she said, well, I was at school. I was at a class, and this girl came up and she was beating me up over some boy, and she named names. So her mother got very hysterical, called up the school. The school went and investigated the case, only to find out that there she was out with her boyfriend. And that's how it really happened. And she said, look, this reminds me of this. And in talking with the people, black women in particular, because I see them being more outraged than anybody in this sense, not just black women, because a crime of rape is such a vicious thing, and you have to go through such traumatic
perversion,
traumatic experiences that for you to even think that someone is projecting that something like this happened, and it may turn out that it didn't. It's upsetting, because then when something really does happen to somebody, look out.
Exactly as Roy had said just a little bit earlier. We're going to scroll on the body.
What brings something to mind there is that, years ago, I remember interviewing a professional jewel thief. And he confessed to what he had done, and I asked him at the end of it, he had put next to the safe that he opened a big red X on a woman's lipstick he picked up in the apartment. I said, what was that for? I was young and naive at that point in time. He says, I always do something like that because the police will come in and meditate, concentrate, and try to figure out that red X and forget about everything else. And I can't say that that's the case here, but it gives me pause to reflect that the focus and the concentration is KKK. And the other term that was written there, to the preclusion of the legitimacy of the whole thing.
Mart, some cowards firebomb the Corps office late at night when we weren't around. They wouldn't face it directly and wrote nigger and KKK in the office. There's no KKK brave enough, tough enough to come into the Corps office and try something like that.
All right. Let me ask this young lady. Let me go to this young lady. Ma'am?
Yes, hello. I'd basically like to say that nobody has mentioned that Maddox and Mason, it's been rumored that they are affiliated with socialist organizations. I would not be surprised if they're using this young lady, Miss Brawley, as a political pawn to separate the races, separate and divide. It's the old communist, concept. I wouldn't be surprised.
So far.
We can't let them do it. We have to love each other. We're all Americans. We cannot let them achieve their goal.
What's very interesting to respond to that is in the Soviet Union today, there has been a very concerted effort to pacify the folks over there with the terrible racist conditions here. And there's been a whole series of things over the last two years. Mm-hmm. And the Tawana Brawley case, you may think is big news in New York State or the United States.
Even bigger in the Soviet Union.
In Moscow, it's a front page story.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the very serious fallout things from this.
Mark, the serious fallout that took place in New Jersey, where a decent black lady was a true victim of a couple of white hoodlums who smeared her, not with dog feces, but human feces. That's one of the first victims in fallout. And for that reason, and the relationship to the
copycat crime.
Copycat crime. And to respond to the fine statement of the lady about certain nefarious ideological positions being maximized in this case, I want to make a direct appeal to Al Sharpton. I'm going to surprise you. Al Sharpton is not like those guys, Maddox and Mason. And I'm saying to Al Sharpton right now, I respect you enough, Al, to tell you you're being pushed up front by these guys. You are being hustled by them. You were hustled in Bensonhurst. You are being hustled here. Get out of this case. Get out.
Get out, Al. Roy's just telling you something that'll save your fat ass. Get out. We'll be right back. Let the audience speak. Go ahead, sir.
I think the fact that Sharpton and his legal cronies care very little about the best interests of Tawana Brawley is as self-evident as the fact they care very much about their own. And I'm curious what Mr. Innis thinks about the self-motivation of these people. I mean, as events unravel, their reputations, I think, are being irreparably destroyed. And I don't think that's what they intended.
Yeah, but wait a second. Where are they being destroyed, all right? They're only being destroyed in the minds of people who didn't like these people in the first place. So what they are doing is they are trying to gather in the small support they have, make it cohesive, stand in the middle of it, and let the periphery of their support take the beating. And that's what they're looking for.
They're getting attacked by CORE, by the ACLU, by the NAACP, not a lot of conservative groups there. I'm curious what you think about their self-motivation. I mean, are they, did they really just blow this one?
I think Al has been suckered, really, by these guys. These fellows, Mason and Maddox, they have never seen a criminal that they didn't love. These fellows will never defend decent people. They'll go look for the murkiest people. Mason is the lawyer for some of the worst drug pushers in Queens.
I see, and as a matter of fact...
Is that a civil rights lawyer?
Matter of fact, Roy, I think one of his clients, the kingpin out there, just got 3.5 years for gun possession, didn't he, yesterday?
I might get a whole lot more.
Yeah, when they bring him up on the murder charge.
Whether he killed a probation officer. It's a question as to whether they might be involved in the killing of that young, heroic policeman who was guarding that witness.
Go ahead, pal.
Mr. Innis, one quick second. Let's not forget one thing. After watching Mort's show on Fat Al, the man, believe me, is a disgusting human being. He is hurting all of us. And how can you stand up here and say, Al, get out?
I'll tell you what.
The guy is a media hound. He's absolutely disgusting, and we're all fed up with him.
I'll tell you why. My staff ask me that question all the time. You can ask them. They ask me that question all the time. I knew Al from a young man.
No,
let me tell you. He's a bright young man. Very bright young man. In fact, I even boast sometimes as one of my best students. He's gone astray. But Al can be saved. I know Al.
Who wants to save him? Who needs
Al,
him? Let's get at him.
We've
Let's kick him out. What do you say?
Well, but let me tell you something.
All right. But what better to save a sleazeball like Al Sharpton, have him come back and say, hey, baby, I was on the wrong track. I followed these garbage men. I followed them. They dumped their garbage on me. I ate it. I believed I was wrong. And now I'll expose him. Turn him back into a decent human being that he could have been, that Roy says he was when he was younger. I think he was a con man from the time he first sucked on his mother's breast. We'll be right back.
You ever feel like the whole world's gone mad? Well, now what?
The way to get rid of racism? Bag Al Sharpton, throw him in the garbage where he belongs. Right there.
Mort, I completely understand the response of this gentleman, of the audience, of many people on the outside. But let me tell you, don't let Maddox and Mason suck at you. They are not getting half the blame that Al is getting. Save a little bit for them, too. They are more dangerous.
let me ask you quickly. Let me
by
ask
the
you
way,
quickly.
the
Is there
people
any money in this?
Yes. The guys who are going to really profit from this is not Al Sharpton. It is Mason and Maddox.
Why?
Huh?
Why?
The police chief, Ben Ward,
Do they have-
accused them of that before.
Because he's a cowardly bastard. And incidentally, let me tell you something. He called me to do this show. He asked me to let him do this show. And then 1 hour before the show, begs out because Innis is going to be here. Where does the money come from Maddox and Mason?
These people want to have these phony cases and to drag the racial hearing and make it a racial case. They go into massive fundraising, defense funds. They are the recipients. They are the beneficiaries of the defense fund. That is the hustle.
And let's take a look at the hustle. They suckered Bill Cosby in. They suckered Mike Tyson in, who set up a $50,000 fund and gave away a $30,000 Rolex watch, all right? Go ahead, pal.
Yeah, it seems to me that Ms. Brawley's testimony, if it ever does come into the courts, it seems that it would be tainted or it would be criticized more so than any other rape victim's testimony because of all the controversy and all the negative publicity that came about. I'd just like to know if that would be true in a real court or if that would.
I think so, but I think if in fact she comes forth and cut loose from these guys, free herself, liberate herself, and come forth and explain to the public that she was in fact captured by them and tell the truth, she will get the sympathy of the entire community, black and white, even if it's not true.
You bet. Tawana, if you're watching tonight, sweetheart, free yourself of the shackles of the Three Stooges, all right? Because what you have seen tonight is bravery, honesty, and community among both blacks and whites. And more importantly, we're all together. Behind you! Get rid of the scum! Good night, everybody!
This is Al Sharpton denying that Tawana's story was a hoax years later. He did this several times, refusing to admit it was a hoax.
My name is Tawana Brawley. All right. I'm not a liar and I'm not crazy.
It was 1987. Tawana Brawley was a 15-year-old who claimed she was raped by 6 white men in law enforcement, and Al Sharpton took up her cause. But there was no forensic evidence of any sexual attack, and there was evidence Tawana made up the whole story. The case, labeled a hoax, was dismissed, and Sharpton was forced to pay $65,000 to those he had named. But in all this time, he has never voiced any regret. You have gone back and looked at things with such a clear eye. You've apologized, you've asked for forgiveness, except on Tawana Brawley. I don't get it.
I'll be honest with you. I have thought about that a million times. I just don't believe they treated that case fair.
If I knew that I had in any way contributed to falsely accusing someone, I think I would feel an obligation to say I'm sorry.
I think you're right. I think the operative word is if you knew that. I don't know that.
If they didn't do
but
it,
but suppose they did.
Taking the,
suppose they did.
But they didn't. They didn't.
This is a strange video interview with Tawana from 2009. There's an inactive YouTube channel from almost 10 years ago that was completely devoted to defending Tawana's case.
22 years after the rape and abduction of Tawana Brawley, Tawana and her family continues to struggle for justice. On December the 11th, 2009, I interviewed Tawana, her mother, and her father. And this is what this has affected your life. And I want to ask both of you this because as a family, what happened to Tawana happened to you. And it has had tremendous effect on your life. So who would like to start?
Okay. Hi. I'm
It's okay.
Well, I know that a lot of women and young girls get raped. So I can't speak for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
But even though it was like over 20 years ago, every time the word is mentioned or my whole name is mentioned, it shakes me to my core and I get stiff and scared. Like it just happened. And I know a lot of people don't understand that. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right.
They don't understand that when something that horrific happens to you, and even though you're physically fine and you can walk around from day to day, you hear the word on television or just anything, the soap operas we watch, just anything. It makes me afraid. And I'm just a regular person. I'm not an extraordinary person. Just a regular person. I think I'm a good person. I try to do the right things. And I try to block it out. I try to think it was somebody else, not me. But when it comes back in your face, like every once in a while reporters come to get what, 10-year anniversary, 20-year anniversary, what's happening now, whatever. I freeze up. And I can't move. And I'm just sitting there and I'm listening to all the things that happened to us. You would think it was a movie. Like something that's unreal. All the things that happened to my family. People pulling guns out on a teenager and a 2-year-old and a mother and a father. Not being able to go to school. When you do go to school, people look at you funny, talk about you to your face and behind your back or whispering to the side, but you can see it. My parents, my mom, she's a strong one. My dad, they're the strong ones. I was surrounded, fortunately, by a lot of strong people who protected me and helped me get through it. I was blessed to have the best family, the best mom. She's a fighter. She's ready to go to war. For me, it's been like that all my life. But it's something that doesn't go away. No matter how hard you wish it does. It doesn't. And I know a lot of people have been like, it's not as public as mine. I think mine's probably the most ever. So it just feels like everyone's looking at you different. Oh, I wish it didn't happen. I wish nobody knew my name. I don't want to be famous. I just want to be normal. So how is it affecting my life? It affects it every day. And if it wasn't for the UAM, the strong supporters, you, Definitely automatic. My family. I wouldn't be here. My aunt wouldn't either. I remember something she told me a long time ago when I was feeling so bad. And I had my head down. And she said, no matter what anybody says to you or about you, you walk with your head up high and be proud of who you are. So I try to do that every day. It comes off as my mom taught me how to walk. And my aunt reminded me to hold my head up. So I always look like I'm proud of who I am. And I have to remind myself every day to be proud of who I am. But I wanted to thank everyone. You don't know how grateful I am. Words can't express how grateful I am. I'm alive physically and mentally because of all of your support. So don't ever stop fighting.
Tawana, many people may want to ask you this question. They may, and I just want you to explain why. Everywhere I go, they say, well, why didn't Tawana talk? But just for them, tell them why you couldn't talk or wouldn't talk.
Well, in the beginning, I physically couldn't talk. And then later on, so many people were talking for me, about me. And I didn't see any progress or anything. I just wanted to just curl up and die. I wasn't proud of being raped. I'm not one of those people who like to go on talk shows and say, well, this is what happened to me, and da-da-da-da. I don't see how people could do that. I'm not built that way. I was ashamed. I didn't want anybody to. I didn't want to say it because then it would be too real. I think for a long time I was like, okay, if they don't believe it, then it didn't happen. Good. I didn't want to believe it. I still don't want to believe it. But it doesn't go away.
Not only that, your attorneys did not advise you and would not allow you to talk. And I think you should say that as well, because that is the truth, because I was there.
Oh, yeah, I know. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I just wanted you to talk about it.
Oh, I was advised by my attorney, Automatics, not to speak out. And at the time, still today, anyone who does say something positive, it gets twisted and turned around in the papers. I didn't believe that mass media would put out the truth. And they haven't.
Do you say you don't believe that the mass media would put out the truth, and they haven't. Have you, do you know, let me ask you this. Do you feel that if you had been a young 15-year-old white female, white child, that this would have been handled the same way it was handled with you? And if you do feel that way, why?
Oh, no, I don't believe it would have been handled the same way. the perpetrators were black?
No, that too. But if you were a white 15-year-old child that this happened to you, do you think it would have been handled the same way? Do you think the press would have done the same thing? Do you think
No, they would have arrested anybody they could have got their hands on. I don't believe if this would have happened to me if I were white, it would have been handled this way at all. I don't believe it.
Whenever I watched the Morton Downey Jr. documentary and first heard about Tawana, it immediately reminded me of Jussie Smollett's staged hate crime.
Jussie Smollett made it all up. The actor and musician staged the hate crime against him, a claim of a noose around his neck, of two men attacking him on a frigid night in Chicago, dousing him with bleach, yelling, "This is MAGA country." All lies. And his claim under oath that there was no hoax, that was a lie too. Here's Smollett walking into court in Chicago about an hour and a half ago, moments before the decision came down. After deliberating for more than 9 hours, a jury found Jussie Smollett guilty on 5 of 6 counts of felony disorderly conduct. The judge announced the verdict last hour. The jurors heard 6 days of testimony from more than a dozen witnesses. But essentially, the criminal trial came down to whose story was more believable, Smollett's or the two brothers he says attacked him. Jussie Smollett could face up to 3 years in prison for each count, but it's unlikely that will happen since the actor has a clean criminal record. Now, here's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for lawyers to come outside of the courthouse. A short time ago, a prosecutor spoke, and the prosecutor said, "We proved our case. Jussie Smollett is guilty." A judge set a hearing for late next month, and then a sentencing date will be determined later. This is a live look outside the courthouse. Our producers there have not said that Jussie Smollett has come out these doors. He and an entourage, along with lawyers, went in, but we haven't yet seen them come out. We'll wait for that, and should the lawyers take to the microphones, we'll bring it to you live. First, David Henderson, civil rights attorney, CNBC contributor. David, the problem here was the stories, one story had facts behind it and another story didn't.
Yeah, Shep, that's exactly right. And honestly, you could tell this from the beginning because originally they were investigating in order to prosecute the people accused of attacking Mr. Smollett. There's no way they were going to reverse on him unless they thought they had a really strong case. And ultimately, when he took the stand, there were some things that he just couldn't explain, like that $3,500 payment.
What do you suspect would happen now? I mean, the lawyers I've spoken with, and I think you've said the chances of probation are pretty good. But is there a case to be made that this was particularly egregious, according to the verdict of the jury? I mean, there was video of him going around this place the day before, setting it all up. One lie after another lie after another lie, according to the jury's verdict. And all four were led to believe publicity. And what he's talking about here is a hate crime. He's staged a hate crime, a black gay man. Some might say he should have known better than that.
Oh, Shep, I think that goes without saying that he should have known better than to do that. Now, in terms of your question about the sentencing, whenever you're a celebrity and whenever you've done something that's particularly egregious and notable, you run yourself the risk of being made an exception of, and a judge trying to demonstrate, hey, we need to make sure this doesn't happen again, so we're going to make an example out of you. That's a risk that he does run, and it's hard to anticipate what the result of that's going to be. A normal person, I'd say they're looking at a year or less of probation. The judge, again, though, could make an exception for him.
You know, these sorts of crimes do happen from time to time, and convincing juries that they did is sometimes very difficult. What does this do to justice in this lane in America? Is this so egregious that it could be injurious in the big picture?
You know, Shep, I think whenever you have cases like this that make the news, where someone is found to have lied about a hate crime or about any type of a violent crime, as someone who's had to try these types of cases, it does always make you fearful of what you're going to be dealing with in the jury pool, because people already start off being skeptical. But the counterbalance is every case gets dealt with one jury at a time, one trial at a time. So I don't think it's something that can't be overcome. It just does give an unnecessary negative perception about hate crimes.
This video gives a great perspective on the connection between Tawana and Jussie.
Black people in America are so fucking easy to get riled up in their emotions. All it's got to contain is racism, a MAGA hat, Donald Trump,
and motherfuckers lose their minds, believe shit that's not true. I'll give you prime example. That Jussie Smollett story, that's some bullshit, people. That's some bullshit. At the time, he said he was attacked by these doggone guys talking about this is MAGA country. It's 2 in the fucking morning, single fucking digit temperatures. Now, it's a couple of things that black folks don't like. One, they don't like you talking about their Jesus in a bad way. Oh, no, you're going to make enemies. 2, oh, don't talk about Obama. Oh, you really going to have some doggone enemies. 3, it's cold ass motherfucking weather, okay? Black folk don't fuck with no single digit temperatures. We don't fuck with cold ass shit like that. And at the time of this attack, when he got attacked in Chicago, so he say, because I'm not going to say allegedly because it's bullshit. Nothing happened to him. 2 in the morning, single digit temperatures. You walking around downtown Chicago by the lakefront, which means the temperature is colder. Where the attack happened, oh, that's close to the lake, so it's extra cold. Get the fuck out of here. Does anybody hear the ring of the Tawana Brawley case out of New York? Remember that for you all that are old enough? Remember 1987 when this black chick made a doggone plan to go lay up with her, finna be an inmate boyfriend, but she didn't have a plan to get home, so she doggone roughed herself up a little bit, marked KKK on her stomach, was in a dumpster. The police found her. She said 4 white men raped her and put KKK across her stomach. Then the truth came out and it was like, oh shit. You know, you had Al Sharpton and all other race baiters all on it. I'm like, KKK attacking somebody black in New York. You know, that's about as doggone believable as the doggone Nazi party doing a march through Compton, California. That's as believable as the Aryan Nation doing a doggone rally in Inglewood on the south side of Chicago. That's about as believable as the Nazi party doing a membership drive. If Bankhead Courts was still open in Atlanta, they doing a membership drive in the city of Atlanta at Bankhead Courts. Not happening. But all you got to do is throw racism, and that's it. Black people all in their feelings. They snatching up talking about this is MAGA country. Are you fucking kidding me? Chicago has been Democrat run for 96 years and is going to be Democrat run for 96 more. Remember, Trump tried to come and speak in Chicago, and what happened? They had a riot. He couldn't speak. So miss me with that bullshit. This is a publicity stunt. Jussie Smollett is in his feelings. He's upset because Lee Daniels got him a new little boy toy to play with. All that shit is gay drama and a publicity stunt because, you know, the next season of Empire is coming up, is it not? And Lee Daniels then found him something else to play with outside of Jussie Smollett. So miss me with that bullshit. This Jussie Smollett racial attack in Chicago is the Tawana Brawley New York attack 2.0. That's all that it is. Fake story like a motherfucker. I'm not buying it.
Morton Downey Jr. copied Tawana long before Jussie. The documentary about him details how it was completely staged.
They may be prosecuting this case later on Channel 9 News. Well, he's the talk show host who left his hair in San Francisco. Morton Downey Jr. claims he was attacked by skinheads. Police are not so sure. Matthew Schwartz is standing by live outside Channel 9 studios with the story.
Rollin, Morton Downey Jr.'s audience is usually leaving the parking lot here now outside our studio, but tonight the taping was canceled. Canceled after what some people are saying was an act put on by the loudmouth himself.
What were they trying to do with your face?
I don't know. Can I have some coffee and go to bed?
Yeah.
It was a downer of an evening for Morton Downey Jr. The controversial TV talk show host had swastikas drawn on his face and shirt, and some of his hair was cut. Downey claims between 1 and 3 skinheads attacked him in a bathroom at San Francisco International Airport. He talked to reporters in his hotel room shortly after the alleged incident. Downey told us about it when he returned to his Manhattan apartment.
I was pushed inside of a stall. I never was sat down in the stall. I was leaned up against the stall. I did ask them not to hurt me. Next thing I knew, I was reaching for something blunt that I felt against my face. They pulled my hand down again. You know, it's really hard to resurrect it sometimes. Pulled my hand down again, wrote something on my face, and cut my hair off, and then said, "Now you're one of us, Sig Heil." And they were gone.
But some San Francisco airport police and spokesmen don't believe Downey.
There has been no substantiation of any of the statements that Mr. Downey has made. There were no skinheads to be found in the area.
The taping of the Downey show was canceled because of the alleged incident. However, many members of the studio audience made the trip here unaware of the cancellation.
Show's been canceled. Who are we going to? And we drove all the way from Harrisburg.
Mort probably, sets this whole thing up just because his ratings are dying. Everyone knows that.
I think he's having a little problem on the show and off the show, and he probably needs some time off.
Were you drunk?
Well, of course, no one gave me any blood tests. I never staggered. You'd have to ask other people who were with me.
But there's no doubt that this is what happened to you.
Pardon me?
There's no doubt this is what happened to you.
Well, you've heard the story, all right?
Now, tonight, Downey told me that he is not sure whether there were 1, 2, or 3 attackers in that bathroom. However, earlier today, he told another reporter he's certain that there were 3 attackers. He said that his road manager called the TV station in San Francisco soon after the alleged attack, and certainly that station quickly dispatched a crew to do those interviews in Downey's hotel room in San Francisco. As far as his cut hair, Downey told me that a hair weave specialist is en route from Baltimore to patch things up so he can return to the airwaves. Reporting live from outside our station, I'm Matthew Schwartz. Now let's go back to Rollin in the Channel 9 newsroom.
Okay, thank you, Matt.
I think this last video is a great final takeaway on the whole situation.
What's going on, guys? Happy Monday. It's Mr. DEBT Joe Locke from the Money Etiquette Group. And man, everyone's talking about Jussie Smollett. He faked his attack. Who knows why? He just wanted attention. We don't know if it's real or not. Look, I'm not here to debate whether he faked his attack or not. But what I will say is if he did fake his attack, which it looks like, but if he did, it's nothing new. When people see that there's a way to make more money or people feel like they're going to lose money, celebrities do what regular people do, which is they take desperate measures. They just have more money to fake what they do, okay? Instagram stars do this every day. It's just they don't do it to this extent. People do this every day. They just don't always do this to this extent. However, celebrities have done this, and let me just help, kind of get your memory going about some of the things that have happened in the recent past. We can start with Brian Williams and his account of being shot down in Iraq and having to be rescued. Why did Brian Williams lie about this story? Why did he embellish what really happened? Because he wanted to sell a bigger story so he can make more money, so he could keep his job, so he could keep a certain position when it came to nightly news and reports. That's why he did it. He's a celebrity. He wanted to keep or make a certain amount of money, so he lied. And he lied about something that was serious. What about Steve Ranazizi? Remember, he's the comedian that made up a fake account about how he survived 9/11, how he was he was in New York at the time at the Twin Towers, and he survived. And then that was all false. Now he's still working today. People didn't cancel him, but it's just another instance of someone lying about something major. I mean, that was a serious situation, yet he lied because he wanted to make some more money. Okay, he wanted attention. How about Morton Downey Jr., since we want to go to hate crimes? Morton Downey Jr. and his being attacked by skinheads. Okay, this was a white male that claimed that he was a victim of what wasn't called at that time a hate crime. And it was all false. It didn't happen. He drew the swastika the wrong way. I mean, these things have happened before, people. I just want to point out the fact that when the motive is money, people do crazy things. And celebrities have more access to create elaborate plans and schemes and scenes. Now, I don't know what happened with Jussie. It doesn't look good. But the fact is I wasn't there. And frankly, I don't want to say I don't care. I do care when people take advantage of people's feelings and cause other people with legitimate claims not to be taken seriously. But that's the day we live in. Everything that we see in the media, we have to really investigate. You know, we can't just give that type of energy to some things and not other things. Look, I give that attention to and that energy to everything. If I wasn't there, I truly don't know what happened. That's my stake on anything that happens through the media. I don't care if it was 2 blocks down from where I lived and somebody was reported to commit some crime. If I didn't see it, I don't really know. Now that doesn't mean that I don't believe something happened or not. Like I said, the way the information is being released, I don't frankly believe the account that Jussie gave. I don't know what happened, but I don't believe it. But I can't factually say what happened or not, so I don't put too much energy into that. So my point is not disproving someone's claim or even proving them to be right. My biggest thing is people do this for money. All right, there's nothing new in history. What other accounts do you remember from celebrities and people just faking things to make money? Tell me, and put some more stories out here so we can just talk about it.
Sponsored by DeepSouthUrbex.com.